get together, so sometimes an actor may have to come do a one-on-one session if they weren't able to make it to the recording. But I do feel that it is much easier to match with everybody else if we're all recording at the same time.
Now, the actor side of me agrees with both of you. The producer, director side of me says that's a very difficult task, and because at least in Western audiences are extremely used to like mouth movements that pretty much match the characters. Like it's very difficult. So there's so much of the process that's a technical process on top of it being an acting process that I'm just like because there's so much more dubbed content in Japan, there's more understanding that they're not going to exactly match the mouth movements, but it's just too difficult for me to escape something that not looking right in the mouth, and it's so hard for me not to do it. I prefer to work off someone every day, and as the owner of the studio where we record the show, I usually get myself the luxury of being able to come in last. So I get to hear everybody else's performances, and then I get to make modifications to my line, so I kind of cheat in a way. I get literally the best seat. If you're the first person to record, it's like the worst, because you're just recording just dry, you're in this vacuum. But if you're the last person, you're essentially recording with everybody else.
Well, yeah, certainly if the show's already animated, there's no, like having everyone in the group I would find that to be completely a difficult process, but I was more looking at it from the scope of if Dragon Ball Z wasn't even animated yet, and we actually got to just do it all, and then they animated to our performances after the fact, that's the way I really love to work, because then actually your facial movements, many times I'm filmed in performances, they say, can we come in, we're gonna film you guys, and they film what we're doing with our faces when we're angry or we're joking or we're doing things, and the animators will use those to create the shows. And that's a prelay environment, and if there was a prelay environment of Dragon Ball, it would be amazing. It would be incredible.
There's one thing certain that I really want to ask you. All right, again.
Are you looking at the script while you're recording, or do you have all the lines memorized?
Whoa,
I haven't memorized a line in a really long time. No, script and screen.
Yeah, you see the script right here and the screen's right behind it. You're basically just having to follow both things at one time. Now, yes, but yours sometimes comes in as not finished, but sometimes yours is like an animatic with the mouth shape. Is that what happens sometimes? Or do you normally see the completely finished episode?
基本的に口パクというのは絶対に合わせるんですけれど、そこはすごく時間的にも正確に取っていくということをするんで、だからそういう意味ではなんていうのかな、レコーディングしたものを機械的にずらすことも確かにできるとは思うんだけれど、何度もやっぱりもう一遍リテイクして撮り直していくっていう場合が多いですかね。How many times does it take to record it?
Oh, me just once, you know. I'm joking. I'm kidding. It really varies. Like we try and do our best on the first take, but sometimes it can take 3 takes. And that's another thing that would worry me about recording Dragon Ball in a group setting, which blows my mind, is I feel that sometimes the screaming that you do in that show, I think it would be easier if I wasn't able to see anybody else. Like there'd be this like, I wouldn't mind if no one else was watching me during that, because it's pretty intense and you look ridiculous when you're doing it. So I can only imagine that it's like, is there anyone that you're ever nervous around to, like, are there any of the other cast members you can't even look at when you're screaming?
もう録音してる時って基本的に隣の人とかもう見えない状態っていうか集中してるからあまり気にならないです僕的には。はい。
So what he said first was that anime in Japan is made on a time schedule, and sometimes they can delay for recording, but most of the time the animation won't be finished. Sometimes I'll put in a few more details and then go back and re-record. And that's when he asks, so how many times do you record? But when you record in the studio in Japan, you can't see the other people around you because you concentrate and you step forward away from, so everyone's in the room, but everyone's behind you and you can't see people around you at all.
It's really cool.
Yeah, that's very different. Prelay work, when we do stuff that's animated after the fact, many times we're in a circle around each other. There can be up to 10 people, so we're looking across. When you have a scene with someone right beside you, you can't get off the mic to talk to them, but you're right beside each other or across from each other in the room. So it's a very different process, uniquely different type of work.
Awesome. I did want to say on a personal note, real quick. It's crazy that Stacy there and I, we've been watching this series since the mid '90s, and we're here in this big kind of vegetable sandwich. Because she's a piece of bread, I'm a piece of bread, and the vegetables are in the middle. It's just crazy. We're here. So this is for all of you. You have a great body of work. Every actor up here has a tremendous resume that speaks for itself in different things too, you know, not just Dragon Ball, tons of different shows. Is Vegeta your favorite character you've ever voiced? And if not, who is it?
That's a loaded question for this audience.
Yeah.
Well,
Be careful.
Vegeta, of course. Yeah, of course it's Vegeta. Do you guys prefer honesty or that I lied to you?
Honestly, no clickbait.
Lie to me, man. Lie to me.
Lie to me, baby. Vegeta is one of my all-time favorite characters in animation. But not one of my all-time favorite characters to voice because of how difficult it was and is, for those still doing it, to do. It is extremely taxing and very hard on the vocal cords, and dubbing work is far more difficult than prelay work, the precision that's involved. You have to work by yourself, not with a group, not as fun for me. I love working with people as opposed to alone. So that's where I put not as fun, but as far as character arc and who the character is and the journey he's been through, he's at the top of my list of all-time favorite characters. So for viewing, that's why I know he is for you too. But for work, when a Dragon Ball session would show up on my calendar from my agent, it was usually something. That's what my head would do. And when how long? You have 2 sessions of Dragon Ball Z next week. Oh God! Can you put them on a Friday so I can have Saturday and Sunday to recuperate? That's sort of where I sit with Vegeta.
That makes sense.
Yeah, he said it. It's really hard. It's so, I guess, maybe you probably are aware of that. And I know going into a session that it's going to take all of my, all the power I have to even get through it sometimes. But as a character, like, it's hard for me to compare it to anything because who else other than like some of the most famous iconic characters in animation gets to play a character for 20 years. Like, and anyone who thinks that he just like went away is wrong because there was video games, there was recuts, and there was the orange boxes, and the yellow boxes, and the Kai, and so Vegeta's never left. And it's also hard for me to separate how Vegeta has impacted my life in general, like me as a person, like I don't even know who I would be now. Like my whole identity is connected with that character.
I'd be nobody.
I'd be nobody. You're right, though. I don't know what I would be. And so it was such a, I don't know, it sucks to have to scream that loud and to know that I'm going to have flu-like symptoms the next day. But Dragon Ball Z has given me so much that I don't have a choice, because if I don't scream my butt off, Sean's going to scream better than I do, and I don't want that to happen.
はい、まあ役者っていうのは自分がやった役っていうのは愛さないとできないもんなんですよ、どんなキャラクターであれ。でもちろん全てのキャラクターを愛してるって言えばすごくかっこよくは聞こえるとは思うんですが、まあクリスが言ったようにもう何年も何十年もやってるともう離れられないというか、どうしてもそういうなんていうのかな、長寿番組っていうかになってくるとそこから離れることができないので、もうどうしても付き合わなきゃいけないわけですよ。何十年も一緒になんか生活を共にするみたいな感じで、そうなると他のキャラクター大事にやってるつもりなんですけど、各作品のどうしても何十年もやってるってなるとそこから離れられないんで、必然的にもう好きにならずにいられないというか、付き合いが長いですからだからまあ人生の一部と言いますかね、そんな感じですかね。
As an actor, I don't think you can play a character unless you really love them. So of course I love all of the characters that I play. Though with Vegeta, we've been a part of each other for so many decades now that I just can't separate myself from him. So he's just so much a part of my life, and I feel like we both grew up in all these decades that I've been playing this role. And so yeah, so it's been just such a long time, and it's always going to be a part of my life.
Almost 32 years.
Wow. Vegeta is one of the coolest characters ever. I played Dr. Claw. I played Wolverine. I played Venom. And Vegeta, honestly, he's still at the top.
Yeah.
So you mentioned how it's taxing on your voice. What is your absolute all-time favorite recording session that you've had with Vegeta, whether it be a taxing one where maybe you felt sore the next day, but you said, you know what, I nailed it, or maybe it's more of like an emotional scene. For example, I don't think Chris has gotten to this yet in the Super dub, but there's a scene in Super where Vegeta's trying to name his daughter, like he has to figure out what to name her, and it's very adorable. So what kind of scenes that you've done throughout your career as Vegeta stand out as being like ones where you're like, yeah, like this was awesome, like you felt good about yourself because there was something magical like that night or that day in the studio? You could be screaming or not, it's up to you.
I mean, I don't have to explain why this scene was great, but just the moment where Vegeta does sacrifice himself and he puts his arm around his son. I'm sorry, you have to have a heart of stone to play Vegeta, but it crushed me, man. Like, it just crushed me, and it was a difficult, emotional recording session, because back in those days we were working so hard to get the show on TV every week that we didn't even know what was happening. We didn't even have the materials up until the end of the show. So I didn't even know what was going to happen to Vegeta as things went along. So it was when he became a Super Saiyan, I was like, oh wow, that's awesome. And I think in a way, it's kind of the way that Rio got to experience the series, because he didn't know what the future was going to be either. We've had conversations about this. Like, one of the funniest things he ever said to me was, man, when I first started working on the show, I didn't even know if I was going to make it 20 episodes, because people die in the show. So So, yeah, man, it's that was probably my favorite scene. Yeah, easily.
そうだな、僕もやっぱりここではっきり変わったと思うんです。今までのベジータっていうのは自分のためだけに戦ってきた、自分が強くなるためだけに戦ってきたのが、初めて家族を守るために自分を犠牲にしていくという、そこら辺がもう変わりつつあるというか、今までのヒールだっただけの男が初めて人のために犠牲になるということをした戦いだと思うんです。最初のマジンプーと戦った時だと思うんだけど、そういうところが一番好きかな。で、あとそういうことで言うならば、やっぱりトランクスにお前を抱いたことがないから抱かせてくれというところが一番好きですね、シーン的には。
Like Chris, I have the same scene where Vegeta sacrificed himself against Majin Buu. At that time, we saw his heart change from how he'd been before. The first time, he wasn't just fighting for himself, he was fighting for his family to protect people. And so he made that sacrifice, and especially at the moment when he said to Trunks that, "I've never held you before, let me hold you now," that was really amazing. Really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, what they said. Honestly, I was probably, in remembering work in different scenes, I was probably the giddiest school kid in doing this 4 hours of Copy Vegeta recently. When I got to be back in the room and working on those scenes, I was just, this is mostly because of what I knew was going to happen. Like, people are going to just love this, and I just thought Chris had such a great idea to do it. That's when I was probably the most pumped about an episode, going, this is going to be fun. Oh, they're going to like this.
So I could talk to these guys all night, but I'm not allowed to. We can't be here all night. But before we close out the Prince of All panels, I would like a special request from Mr. Drum, Mr. Saban, and Mr. Horikawa. We've seen you guys kill your vocal cords for decades and still live to tell about it. And we've seen Mr. Horikawa do Final Flash, but I want to do something a little bit different to close out this epic first, maybe last time ever, hopefully not, but it is the first time ever that you're all in the same room. Can we do a triple Big Bang Attack?
Yeah!
I mean, aren't we supposed to hear the Japanese reference at first? I mean, isn't that how it works?
We gotta hear.
At the same time?
At the same time. In fact, it would be cool if they could stand next to each other and put their arms out like they're going to really nail someone. Can we do that to close out?
Yeah!
How about, can I count you down? I'll be the 3 dots.
I'm gonna be following you, okay?
I'm gonna say 3, 2, 1, go, and then you go. All right, ready?
All right.
Okay.
There we go.
All right, 3, 2, 1, go. Big Bang!